Budget.
When will things actually get better, Chancellor?
Fuck it.
We're expecting to hear from the Chancellor in just a few moments' time.
But the reality is no one really knows.
Muppet.
This is a great example of this government getting things done and delivering for the British people.
These are the interesting times. Hello everybody, my name's Matt Johnson and welcome to The Interesting Times, which is a show that likes to take a sideways swipe at politics right here in the UK. It was a budget this week, and this gave Chancellor of the Exchequer, a walking rice pudding, bland, white and thin-skinned, Jeremy Hunt his first chance to show that he wasn't as bad as Kwasi Kamikaze Kwarteng. So, how did he do? Well, the two standout policies are free childcare for parents of up to 30 hours per week, which is bad news for those without children, and also bad news for those with children. But it's good news for those without children but plan on having children, as the policy will start by 2025. Or knowing this government in 2025, as it'll be after the next general election when Labour will be in power. Basically, Conservative Party is bragging about something it doesn't have to pay for. The other policy, and at the other end of life, is pensions.
Some have also asked me to increase the lifetime allowance from its £1 million limit. But I've decided not to do that. Instead, I will go further and abolish the lifetime allowance altogether.
Yeah, basically the pension allowance, which was just over £1 million, will be gone entirely. Meaning if you're old and have lots and lots of money, then you can put as much away as you like. And no delay with this one, it's in place from next month. Of course, with the debt being what it is, somebody has to pay for all this. And yes, it's us, the great unwashed. The income tax and national insurance threshold for poor working families are being frozen, much like our houses have been for the last few months. This is a process called fiscal drag, which presumably will see Lawrence Fox, Calvin Robinson and a GB News team turn up to 10 Downing Street to protest. Not in front of our kids. But it wasn't all terrible. You'll be pleased to know that there is an 11p cut in a pint of beer in pubs, but not in supermarkets. So, the good news is that you can go to your local and drown your sorrows with others in the same boat. The bad news, you don't know who you might run into there. And Jeremy is certainly happy with the job that Jeremy's doing. He's even keeping the energy cap of £2,500 in place, so people's heating won't cost as much. Just in time for spring. He went on this morning with Phil and Holly and sat there with all the charm of an insurance clerk telling their clients why they aren't covered for that medical procedure.
How do we know that you've got a handle on this?
Well, look, there's always a bit of a pantomime element to the exchanges in Parliament. We have 2.5 million people who are long-term sick and disabled, not in work. Many of them would like to work. Now, the world has changed in the last few years. There are lots of jobs you can do from home on using Teams or Zoom and using a computer. And we think that many of those people would like to work and we can make it possible.
Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, no, seriously, it isn't, honestly.
What makes the Chancellor's boast about lower inflation so ridiculous? Yeah. The idea that it's a tax cut. British people can see through that. Yeah. They see their tax burden at its highest level for 70 years. And they know it's not the government that's lowering inflation, it's working people, earning less, enjoying less.
That's right, tax breaks for the rich, tax depths for the poor, and this has been described as a back-to-work budget, which seems to have worked as the nurses may be going back to work following an increased offer. Where was this before? And Rishi Sunak is very pleased with himself.
I'm delighted to say that the government has reached agreement with unions representing over 1 million NHS workers on a fair and reasonable pay settlement. This is a great example of this government getting things done and delivering for the British people.
Great, I mean, not sure why you couldn't have done this before, but that's great news. Just one question. Where's the money coming from?
So an important question, how much is it going to cost and how will it be funded?
Well, we've been clear that it will not come at the expense of impact on patients.
He hasn't offered any new money, he didn't in the budget.
We've been very clear in terms of the conditions of the discussions we had with the trade unions that this will not come from patient-facing aspects.
Are you at all impacted by the idea, as Helia says, that it may be funded out of NHS existing budgets? Would that make a difference?
We're appalled to learn that today, because throughout this whole process, the government has been saying that this will be new money. It was one of the conditions for the unions entering into the current phase of talks. So we're appalled to hear that news. First of all, we've been misled, and secondly, this is about saving the NHS.
There you go. Once a Conservative, always a Conservative. I talk a lot about Jonathan Gullis and Lee Anderson on this show. 30p Lee and the Kent from Stoke-on-Trent. It's getting a bit repetitive. Thankfully, there's a new git in town. Step forward MP for Blackpool South and bad Alan Bennett impressionist Scott Benton. And while Gullis goes on the news to spout crap and Anderson records his own videos, for Scott, there's nothing quite like showing yourself off or up at work.
She's speaking of safe and legal routes. Given that globally there are over 100 million displaced people.
You got to watch it. That's a lot. If you're not careful, it could get even bigger.
Our public services are already creaking under enormous pressure, and we simply can't accept hundreds of millions of people.
Wow. Well, the next logical step is, of course, billions. Billions of people trying to get into this country. The entire population of the planet travelling on a barely seaworthy vessel. And why stop there? How about billions of people trying to get into your town? Or the entire population of the world, just shy of 8 billion people, trying to get into your house? Hello? I can't come into work today. Yes, I'm afraid the 4 million people that used to live in New Zealand are actually in my bathroom at the moment, and it's going to take me 45 years to brush my teeth. And if you think that sounds ridiculous, you clearly haven't lived in this country any time in the last 3.5 years. As a local Blackpool maths expert, a retired teacher calculated how long it would take for 100 million people to apply for asylum. And he estimated 1,388 years, taking us to 3411 AD. Although the cost of all this processing will slightly be offset by the first economic benefits of Brexit we should be getting that year. And that's it. No time to talk about Boris Johnson being reselected by his constituents to sit at the next election in Uxbridge and South Ruislip, which may be sooner than he thinks. Johnson is sitting in front of the Partygate committee on Wednesday as he faces questions about knowingly misleading Parliament on whether a meeting of people that involved alcohol, food and karaoke was actually a party. Some Conservative MPs have called this a witch hunt. Yeah, as in witch hunt thought this was a good idea. No time to talk about the SNP's man at Westminster, Stephen Flynn, who is having rather a good time of it.
What a complete and utter disgrace, Mr. Speaker, but whilst it may shock, it shouldn't necessarily surprise. Speaker, on Monday, as households in Scotland were awakening to freezing temperatures, they were met with the news that the electricity grid had been upgraded in order to meet the power demands of the Prime Minister's new swimming pool. So may I ask him, was it whilst he was taking a leisurely dip that he decided to leave households drowning in their energy bills? You've got to wonder what planet he's on. From whom are his government taking inspiration? Nigel Farage or Enoch Powell?
You could almost forget what's happening north of the border. Almost.
Together they turned the SNP into an election-winning juggernaut. Now, just weeks after Nicola Sturgeon's shock resignation as First Minister, her husband, the party's chief executive, Peter Murrell, has quit with immediate effect. Reports the SNP had lost around 30,000 members were at first denied by the head of communications, Murray Foote. After they were confirmed, he quit yesterday night, suggesting he'd been given inaccurate information by SNP headquarters. Mr. Murrell said he didn't want to become a distraction from the leadership race.
There you go. If a member of the SNP misleads the public, they resign. A message to the SNP. You won't get very far in politics if you keep doing the honourable thing, you know. Honestly. Dishonestly. No time to talk about the UK banning TikTok from all government phones, but Grant Shapps is planning on staying on TikTok. He sent out a meme from Wolf of Wall Street saying, "I'm not fucking leaving." December 2024? We'll see. There are security concerns over TikTok and the possibility that the Chinese government could pressure the companies to hand over users' personal information. It's an extra bonus for Grant Shapps as you get 4 users' information. But if the Chinese want the Tory government's personal information, then they can damn well pay for it like the Russians did. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you are enjoying these vids, then please don't forget to like, subscribe, share and hit all the notifications bell. Now, there is no Interesting Times next Sunday, but there is still the Wednesday show. So I'll see you then. Take care.